Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Green Program's TGP Talks. Throughout this fall, we have been hosting a new YouTube live series consisting of 30-minute TGP Talks with special guests covering topics from impactful travel to sustainability in academia, to landing your dream job and more. My name is Lauren Hamilton, and I am the Student Success Coordinator here at the Green Program. Is something not on the screen?
It says that there's an
Oh.
error on the screen.
Sure. We might be having a little bit of technical difficulties, which is,
No, now we're fine.
Now we're good. Okay.
There we go.
This is just technology. Great. Well, again, my name is Lauren Hamilton. I am the Student Success Coordinator here at TGP. We also have our Director of Content Strategy, Caitlin Cowan, behind the scenes, gathering your questions throughout the talk through the chat bar. So like I said, she'll be gathering those questions for a big Q&A session at the end. So please introduce yourself, tell us where you're coming from, and put those questions in there now and throughout the series, throughout the talk, so we can have some great questions for the speakers at the end. For those of you who are new to the Green Program, we provide career accelerating education abroad programs for students and young professionals to learn about our world's most pressing challenges in sustainable development. Our short-term big impact programs align directly with the UN Sustainable Development Goals and run in Peru, Iceland, and Japan in the winter, spring, and summer breaks. All of the programs focus on a different element of sustainability. Our Peru program focuses on water resource management and sustainable practices. Our Iceland program focuses on renewable energy and sustainability. And finally, our Japan program focuses on disaster mitigation and nuclear to renewable transitions. Today, we have researcher of Japan's energy industry, TGP guide, and Inside Japan tour representative, Mark Rollins, and Fumi, a Fukushima resident and National Institute of Technology student, to discuss the Fukushima disaster, the revitalization efforts, and the future of Fukushima. For some background, in 2011, Fukushima was hit with a 9.0 magnitude earthquake, in addition to a massive tsunami with waves more than 10 meters high. As a result, the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant served as a catalyst of 3 nuclear meltdowns, hydrogen air chemical explosions, and release of radioactive material, leaving more than 160,000 refugees displaced from their homes. The effects of the disaster sent waves of concern through the international nuclear industry. But nearly 3 years after the accident, Fukushima pledged to source its energy 100% from renewable resources by 2040 and is making great strides in significantly decreasing its number of refugees. In today's talk, we want to look into Fukushima before the 2011 earthquake, the disaster and its aftermath, Fukushima's pledge to go 100% renewable, the revitalization process, and the future of Fukushima. So we can definitely just get started and introduce our two awesome speakers who are staying up late for us in Japan to join us for this talk. So we gotta give them a round of applause for that, as well as just get to know them. So Mark, could you start us off and just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and your experience in Japan?
Yeah, sure. So lovely to see you. It's 11:30 p.m. here in Japan, here in Tokyo. So I'm Mark Rawlins. I work, as you mentioned, for Inside Japan Tours as a tour leader down on the ground here in Japan. Before that, this has been my full-time job for 5 years. And before that, I studied law. I studied law in Bristol in the UK, and then did my master's degree in law in Kyushu University here in Japan.
Sorry, Mark, I forgot to unmute my screen now. So Fumi, I was just gonna ask, can you tell us a little about yourself and how you got involved in the Green Program?
Okay. Hi, Hello, everyone. My name is Vivi, and I was born and raised in Fukushima and currently studying in Fukushima National College of Technology. And that's how I got chance to be involved in the green program. My school introduced me to the green program, that there is a great and valuable opportunity to think about the future of Fukushima with wonderful students from abroad. So I joined it.
Great. Well, we're so glad we got to interact with you on our programs. Fumi, could you tell us a little bit more about what it was like to grow up in Fukushima, and maybe what are your favorite things about Fukushima and Japan?
Fukushima is a really rural area of Japan, so I could play and live close to nature, which was really great. So I loved it.
Great, awesome. So Mark, could you tell us a little bit about Fukushima before the 2011 tsunami, and maybe like what were the major industries in the area and the nuclear industry's influence on the community?
Yeah, sure. So the first thing with Fukushima really is it's a very large prefecture. It's the third largest prefecture in Japan. Covering a good 20,000 square kilometers, and so it's got a wide range of industries and geographies. So of course we know there's the coastal side where the major industries would have been fisheries and marine life, but it goes right up into mountainous areas with national parks, and also lots and lots of agriculture. So 20% of the peaches in Japan are produced or were produced in Fukushima, and a lot of the highest quality rice, as well as Japanese sake, were some of the major sort of products that came from Fukushima pre-disaster.
So could you tell us maybe a little bit about what the like Daiichi nuclear power plant and the nuclear industry's influence on Fukushima is or was before 2011, if you have any notes on that?
Yeah, so what also was in place in Fukushima in general, as Fumi had mentioned, it's a very rural prefecture, and so they had a lot of coal industry running up until the sort of 60s. And nuclear energy was introduced as a way to provide jobs and also sort of reinvigorate small towns in Fukushima. So certainly 3 major sites were in place in Fukushima, which provided huge amounts of jobs and really gave a vibrancy to some of the cities in Fukushima.
Oh, Technical difficulties that she was mentioning.
Oh, Fumi, are you connected to the green program now?
Yeah.
So the talk is still going on?
I think, I don't know, this one is on how, I don't know.
Here we go. Okay. Hey guys, sorry about that. I don't know what happened. Our internet just failed for a second. So, did we leave the video?
I have no idea.
Okay, well, you know what? We're here. So, technical issues has just been a little bit of a theme, but that's okay. We'll just keep rolling on. Could you guys, I think, Mark, you were just talking a little bit about the nuclear industry's influence in Fukushima. Could you maybe just recap that a little bit so we can get rolling and back on track?
Yeah, sure. So it was really a way for the nuclear industry to put sites down in Fukushima in order to sort of invest in poorer areas of Japan and sort of allow villages and towns and cities to grow up, providing jobs via these nuclear installations.
And so, as we talked about a little bit in the beginning, the earthquake that happened in 2011 caused the tsunami that hit Fukushima as well as the Daiichi nuclear power plant. And so we'd love to just go a little bit into that actual event. Plant wasn't able to withstand that hit by the tsunami.
So in terms of what actually happened on the day, of course, there was the magnitude 9 earthquake, which hit first. What happened with that was it was such a large earthquake that it actually knocked the power plant off of the grid. So there was no AC power that was provided to the power plant. In those situations, the power plant has a design where they use backup generators. So they would use diesel power generators. But unfortunately, 45 minutes to an hour later, the tsunami hit. And most of these power generators, these backup generators, were submerged. And so they were subsequently knocked out. Essentially, what that meant was that the technicians had no idea what was going on inside the reactors, and they couldn't gauge the level of water. And the fear would be when the level of water drops significantly, you end up with exposed fuel rods, which was the main danger at the time.
And so, Fumi, could you tell us maybe a little bit about what your recollection of the earthquake was and how your family was affected by this?
On that day, March 11th, 2011, was like me and my family were attending to my graduation ceremony of junior high school. Like the city I'm living, Iwaki City, where I live, is facing to Pacific Ocean, so we evacuated from tsunami in the day. Tsunami hitting my house was not high. It was about 60 centimeters. So actually the house survived. The car was broken though. And so the earthquake and tsunami itself weren't a big problem for our family. But since my father was working at nuclear power plant at that time, from the day after, which was March 12th, we couldn't get in touch with him like for 10 days. That 10 days includes meltdown and explosion of the plant, so it was a bit tough for our family. After the earthquake, our family spent a month for recovering by living and volunteering at school gymnasium where people who were tsunami attacked lived. So yeah, the months pass so quick.
Yeah, that must have been incredibly scary, and especially not to be able to be really in contact with your father for 10 days and knowing what was going on. And so, Mark, could you maybe tell us a little bit about more of what the tsunami and the nuclear meltdowns effects were on Fukushima and the surrounding communities, as well as some of the industries and policies that were going on at the time?
Yeah, so the first thing, of course, was the worry that radiation would spill, and so the major concern was the areas which needed to be evacuated. So this, as the severity of the accident became more and more clear, this area of evacuation became larger and larger. And so I think something like 160,000 people overall were then evacuated. That was the sort of immediate problem. And then from that point on, there was sort of ongoing confusion amongst the government, amongst the electric company which runs the power plant, TEPCO, and also the nuclear regulators as well.
So for me, after the disaster and the immediate consequences, and you talked a little bit about how your family and maybe your friends were involved in some of the immediate relief efforts. Can you tell us a little bit about what maybe the event had an effect on what you were learning in school, and if it's shaped what you are learning and want to be doing in your future?
Mm-hmm. So my school, right after, a few years later, they create a college curriculum about building, development human resources to recover from the earthquake. So this course is mainly for students who are studying engineering. So I'm not really that student, but this curriculum relates to the earthquake of 2011. So study for the renewable energy, nuclear engineering, disaster prevention, and so on. So so many schools trying to get involved and make difference by education. So which is a really good thing, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And you can see that became a lot more prevalent, after that. And for that to be the reaction is really promising to see that the education was a really big element to creating change. And another really big thing that happened in Fukushima was that they pledged to go 100% renewable by 2040. So Mark, could you provide us with any background of why Fukushima decided to take this stance and what is being done to achieve this goal?
Yeah, so it's a very high goal to set, and the target is, I think, intentionally set high. What Fukushima has done is they've been pretty active on setting regulations and incentives for things like renewable energy. So they went through a process of providing feed-in tariffs. So essentially, if you were to set up a solar farm, they would set the rate that you could sell the electricity at, and that would be guaranteed for 10 to 20 years. They've also established offshore wind turbine farms, which is quite a rare thing in Japan because the coastal geography of Japan is not ideal for offshore wind resources. But the country as a whole is considered to have perhaps the highest potential for renewable energy in the world. So there's a lot of potential for them to actually achieve those goals. And it's now about setting targets and setting the correct policies in order to make those possible by 2040.
Got it. Yeah. Fumi, did you see after when this was, pledged by Fukushima, did you see what were your initial reactions to it, and what were your friends' reactions to this pledge to go to renewable?
So after this accident of nuclear plants, many people start thinking about the renewable energy by that. Even the people who didn't even realize the problem energy problems and stuff. So it changed people's mind, and it's actually making the difference these days. And I don't think Japan is a really advanced country in terms of renewable energy yet, but we're trying to become so, and in very fast pace by necessity. I feel like many people learned and realized the environmental problems we are facing, and the fact that we have to make an action immediately. So yeah, it's changed a lot, I think.
Good. Well, it seems like it really brought a lot of awareness into people's minds and seeing, you know, what other avenues are out there for energy. So to open that up to people, and I can see it on your face too, that seemed like a really good movement in your mind as well. So Mark, although the tsunami and the nuclear meltdown, like no doubt have an effect on the area and the people, can you tell us a little bit about, you know, what's going on in Fukushima today? You know, whether from the revitalization efforts or what industries look like in Fukushima today, if that's changed from before 2011?
Yeah, it's been a really promising sort of resurgence, I think. Fukushima today has a very sort of almost a hipster vibe about it. A lot of companies are opening with this idea of producing, you know, organic produce, and also setting up small sort of cafes and bars and things like that. So there's definitely a revival, and I think sort of Fumi has kind of sort of mentioned it because the people have become more aware of this idea of green thinking and the idea of pushing towards renewable energies and a new way of living. So it's very, very positive as far as I can tell. Yeah.
Great. And Fumi, could you maybe tell us a little bit about what you hope for the future of Fukushima personally?
I personally hope Fukushima will be the leading area of renewable energy and environmental actions in this country, at least.
Great. And Mark, could you tell us a little bit about what you hope for the future of Fukushima as well?
Yeah, I would echo that. I think that if Fukushima can really step to the forefront and show us that we can have such a large area which can be, you know, if not 100%, but very largely renewable based, I think that can be a sort of benchmark for the rest of the world and other nations, and that would be a positive outcome for what has happened.
Great. Yeah. And so, Mark, why do you think it's important for students and young leaders to visit Japan or have opportunities like TGP to see what's going on in other countries within sustainability, or just, you know, within get that hands-on learning experience?
Yeah, I think it's just such a great opportunity, because what we're seeing in Fukushima now is at the forefront of technological expertise. So there's so much investment in things like renewable energies going on that if you're someone who's interested in sustainability, then it's really one of the places to be at the moment. And also it's of course attracted a huge amount of experts to the area. So coming in and speaking to those people on the ground and seeing these new facilities and technologies really is a fantastic chance. So you also get the chance to see the people of Fukushima, which is an incredible experience in itself.
Yeah, and to give everybody a little bit of background, like I said before, our Japan program focuses specifically on disaster mitigation and nuclear to renewable transitions, and our students get a really rare opportunity to go into leading facilities like the Daiichi nuclear power plant to see what the decommissioning process looks like, as well as, like Mark said, have an amazing opportunity to really delve into, you know, Japanese culture and meet people like Fumi and be able to see what's going on, you know, all over the world within sustainability, and just interact with people that are coming from different backgrounds, but, you know, could have the same, very similar mindset of wanting, you know, a really positive and renewable future for all. So Fumi, could you maybe give us a piece of advice that you would give travelers interested in visiting Japan?
Well, I think a lot of you guys already heard, but a lot of Japanese are really shy and scared of making mistakes, so that many of us scared of speaking in English, even they can speak and even they can enjoy the conversation with foreigners. So I would recommend travelers to just talk and ask for help, and we would be happy to. So, but at the same time, I would recommend you to speak very slowly, but yeah.
Great. Okay, well, that's a great piece of advice, and hopefully everyone that's listening can take that with them for their next travels to Japan. So I think now we'll go into some Q&A from the audience. If we have any questions, Caitlin, can you give us some, please?
First question, how long have you lived in Japan for, and what is or are some of your favorite parts about being a resident of Japan or Fukushima?
So I think this could be a question for both of you. Obviously, Fumi, maybe you can go first, although we know that you were born there. So it's your hometown. And I think you pointed a little bit about what your favorite parts of Japan were, but maybe if you could talk a little bit again about what your favorite parts about living in Japan are.
Favorite part of living in Japan? Like, I've been living in Japan for like all of my life, so it's kind of a bit difficult, but like, I think I've learned manners and be kind to other people, like helping each other. That's the most important thing I learned by living in Japan. So I really love that part of this country.
Great. And what do you do for fun?
For fun? As most of the Japanese, I really like to go to karaoke.
Great. Do you have a favorite karaoke song?
It's hard. Oh, like Japanese old song from 90s, I don't know, 70s, 80s.
Cool. Well, all of us should have our karaoke song. Maybe some people can add their karaoke songs into the chat bar here. Let us know. So, Mark, could you tell us a little bit more about how long you've been in Japan and what your favorite parts about living there are?
Yeah, so for me, it's been only 7 years. 7 years of lots of good fun. My favorite karaoke song, I've got to say, is actually an old Japanese song because I can't sing well, and then my friends won't recognize that I'm not singing well. So that's my karaoke song. The other great things are just the people, I think, really stand out. The friendliness that you'll find in Japan, you won't find, I think, anywhere else on earth. It's a clean, safe, and very welcoming country. So highly recommended.
Great. So I think we'll go on to if we have any other ones. Caitlin?
Yes. What was one of the questions? What is something about Japan that travelers wouldn't know? Like a fun fact.
So just to repeat that, maybe Mark, you can start us off. What is a fun fact or something that a novice traveler wouldn't know about Japan?
Probably the first thing that people will come across are the highly advanced toilet systems. In Japan, you get heated seats, you get music playing, the toilet lids will open automatically, and that's a real surprise, but can't say it's not a pleasant one.
Yeah, I don't know if I would mind a little concert, that sounds good. So Fumi, could you tell us maybe something that someone wouldn't know about maybe Fukushima, like a traveler wouldn't necessarily know?
About Fukushima is, I don't know. I don't really know about that. But for travelers who really like to come to Japan, maybe I can tell that Japanese people are really flexible about like drinking. Like Japanese people really like to drink and get drunk, and so that we have so many kinds of alcohol. So if you like to drink, maybe you will find it fun to come to Japan.
Try new things, right? That's always good. Caitlin, can you give us another question to go on?
Yeah, we have more questions about the disaster.
Okay.
So what do you think other countries can learn from Japan from your experiences or the country's experiences with the disaster?
Okay, so maybe Mark, if you could start us off. Did you hear that question?
Yes, I did.
Mm-hmm.
So that's actually a huge question, and I think it's one very pertinent for the United States in particular, because, of course, the Fukushima power plant was built by General Electric, and you also have Westinghouse who build the nuclear power plants in the US, and so there are plenty of similarly designed power plants all over the United States. And so what happened after the disaster here in Japan was the US regulatory authorities on nuclear energy had to then reassess their plants and have a look and see if they were safe. And one of the things that needs to be done, I think, and should be pushed for in the US and also any country which is using nuclear energy, is to look at it as in the accident which you would never expect to happen. So what tends to happen when you're looking at nuclear power plant safety is you disregard many accidents because they're so unlikely that you just won't take them into consideration. But that doesn't mean that someday something may happen which can put you out. So I would say that's the major thing that needs to be looked at correctly, rather than what happens at the moment is you look at one layer of defense and you say this reactor goes out but we've still got this one. They need to look more at what happens if both reactors go out.
Yeah, worst case, right? Especially in today's day and age where there's so many of these natural disasters that are, especially in the U.S., have been hitting and affecting a lot of communities here. So to be as prepared as possible. And I think, Fumi, I'd maybe like to hear from you if you have a piece of advice or for any community that is hit with a natural disaster, maybe some advice that you would have for someone around your same age or in a family or anyway, of how to really be prepared for an experience such as this, if you have any advice.
Okay, so I can tell that it's very important to prepare for that and talk about it with your family, friends, how to evacuate and where to evacuate. And just talk about it daily basis is very important, I can tell.
Got it. Thank you, Fumi. So I think we have a few more to go over.
Well, Mark answered one of the other questions, so we have
covered one of them already, Mark.
Have you noticed any changes in tourism within Japan since the disaster?
Mark, do you want to take that one first? If you heard the question.
Yeah. So tourism in Japan has, of course, immediately after the disaster, there was a dip in tourism. But the Japanese government has made huge efforts to increase tourism, and it's a major policy initiative of the Japanese government. So we're hitting record numbers all over Japan every single year. We're adding on millions of new visitors to Japan, so it's in very, very good health.
So maybe what was that effect on Fukushima, and how has tourism looked like in Fukushima over the years?
So Fukushima has always been a popular tourist destination for the Japanese. And I think now what we're seeing is it's becoming a more, it's on the map for people who had maybe never heard of Fukushima outside of Japan. And so now we're seeing an increase in Western tourism to Fukushima. more technical problems?
I think so. I'm not a fan of the internet.
Guys, I don't know what's going on with our internet today, but it seems to not like us that much. And can you guys still hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. So Mark, I think that you were just chatting about like tourism in Fukushima specifically.
Yeah. So which is the return of these tourists. And also what's unique is now Western tourists or tourists from outside of Japan coming to see Fukushima for a variety of reasons. But I think in a weird sense, it's been put on the map by what happened.
Got it. Yeah. Well, is there any? Thank you, Mark. I think we have only like two more questions to go over.
For young people who may not have been born yet, or let's say they're just very young, how do they learn about the disaster now? If they weren't born in 2011, or if they're very little, like how do they get introduced to it?
Yeah, this might be a question for Fumi. If you heard Caitlin, she just asked that for the really young people in Fukushima, how are they taught about the event in 2011 within their education or from their families?
So there is people who experience a tsunami and an earthquake. There's a people who talk about it and then just like have in a lot of school invites those people and let them talk and have time to share experience and learn about it. The student can learn about it. So those children will learn like that, I think.
Got it. Great. Well, I'm glad that there is that type of education and bringing people who were directly affected by the disaster as well. So I think we only have one more question from the audience.
Why are you interested in and involved in nuclear energy or renewable energy in Japan?
Great. Maybe Mark, if you want to jump off on that one.
Sure. So for me personally, so I wrote my master's thesis on energy security in Japan, but I began the thesis shortly after the Fukushima accident. So everything that I was reading in the newspapers here in Japan was all about Fukushima. And so that brought me into wanting to understand nuclear energy. The big question was always for me, how safe is safe enough when it comes to nuclear energy? And then, of course, how much do we want to have nuclear energy in our mix, in our energy mix? So that's kind of one of the things that has interested me, and it's also because it's a difficult question, I think. On the one hand, we got the Paris Accord, which we want to try and hit. But on the other hand, there are obvious dangers with nuclear energy, and I don't think it can last as a long-term solution. In short, the main thing that got me interested in energy in general was the book by Daniel Jürgen, The Quest, which is an excellent book, highly recommended for anyone interested in all sorts of energy. So yeah.
The other side. But Oh, okay. I think we're still good. All right. Sorry, guys. But great. Thank you for that recommendation, Mark. But Fumi, could you maybe tell us a little bit about why you were interested in getting more involved, I guess, with the green program and within renewable energy or nuclear energy as well? Was that a part of that decision?
So first of all, it's like at the beginning, it was because my father's job, since my father was working on it, and I started like interested in it, and I started thinking that we have to make change. And at the time, I was introduced to the green program, and it was really, I thought it's really great opportunity to think and learn about it. And I only know the situation in Fukushima, so it's important. I thought it's important to know how, like, our position in the world and where we are going. So yeah, that's the reason.
Great. And I think that's also aligns a lot with what our students are coming to experience when they come to travel with us too. So I'm glad that they get to, you know, talk with you and also Mark too on our programs and learn from you both from your immense experience. And I can imagine that everyone feels welcomed when they meet you both. So thank you for joining us and for like all the work that you're doing and continuing to do. And thank you for everyone who joined us today to learn more about Fukushima and its bright future ahead. If you are looking for your next adventure and would like to experience the revitalization efforts and process in Fukushima firsthand, we are currently enrolling for our Japan program this spring and summer. You can find more information on our open programs in the description below, as well as through our website at thegreenprogram.com. Thank you for sticking with us through some of our technical difficulties. You know, that's life and that's just what happens. And so I'm glad it all worked out. And I hope that you guys all enjoyed it. And if you'd like to continue with us on our next talk will address landing your dream job on November 29th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. This talk will only be available for accepted students and TGP alumni, accepted students of TGP and TGP alumni. So if you're interested in our programs and would like to join this talk, definitely apply soon. And our team is here to answer any and all of your questions and concerns. So feel free to reach out to us through our email at info@thegreenprogram.com, as well as through our website. We have a messenger app on there that you can shoot us some of your questions as well. So yeah, thanks again to Mark and Fumi for joining us, and to all of you for being here today. We hope you have an amazing day or night or wherever you are in the world. Yeah, we'll talk with you soon and have a good one.